In the final days of June 2026, a seemingly mundane press release from the heart of the British monarchy sent a chilling realization through the private corridors of Clarence House. What looked like a routine administrative update about the completion of Buckingham Palace's £369 million renovation was actually the total silent dismantling of an empire. For 3 decades, one woman had calculated every move survived unprecedented public hostility and quietly eroded the legacy of Princess Diana to claim the ultimate prize. But when the gates of the world's most famous palace finally swung open, Queen Camilla discovered she was locked out forever. She was not escorted out by guards, nor was she subjected to a loud confrontation. Instead, she was written out by protocol, forced through a metaphorical side door, and stripped of the crowning glory she believed was her absolute right. The public was told a convenient truth that the King and Queen preferred the familiar comforts of Clarence House due to their advancing age and the need for operational efficiency. But behind closed doors, Camilla realized the devastating reality of the trap that had just snapped shut around her. This is the story of a secret power grab that went too far, an invisible chess game played across the gilded halls of London, and the cold institutional retaliation that left a queen realizing she actually owns nothing. By the end of this account, you will understand how what appeared to be a standard modernization project for the crown was actually a multi-year trap designed by the true bloodline to ensure Camilla would never truly rule from the sovereign throne room. To understand the magnitude of this psychological collapse, one must first rebuild the immense illusion of absolute power that Camilla had spent half a lifetime constructing. For decades, she played the long game with terrifying patience. She had successfully transitioned from the most hated woman in Britain to the crowned queen, executing a slow, systematic erasure of Diana's memory step by calculated step. She had pushed King Charles to drop the word consort from her official title, achieving a status many thought impossible. She had begun positioning her own children Tom and Laura into the royal orbit, ensuring they were granted prominent placement at historic state events. Camilla believed she had Charles completely isolated and controlled, and with that total control came the absolute assumption that Buckingham Palace would be her definitive fortress, the ultimate symbolic victory over the ghost of her former rival. But absolute power often breeds a dangerous sense of security, and that is where the story changes. With King Charles facing ongoing highly publicized health battle, sources within the palace infrastructure suggest that Camilla began planning for an increasingly precarious future. She knew that if Charles were to pass before her, her status would shift overnight to Queen Dowager, leaving her entirely vulnerable to the true bloodline who had never truly forgotten the past. To secure her family's long-term legacy, she launched a quiet administrative offensive during the final phases of the palace renovations. Camilla attempted to alter the internal blueprints of the sovereign living spaces, pushing to establish permanent private residential suites for her own non-royal children and grandchildren, effectively attempting to carve out a permanent Parker Bowles dynasty within the historic bedrock of the empire. She believed the paperwork would slip through unnoticed amidst the daily chaos of state visits and royal health management. But she severely underestimated the institutional guards of the House of Windsor. That detail matters, because the British monarchy does not run on emotion or romantic influence. It runs on strict spreadsheets, ancient protocol, and the silent oversight of those who protect the future of the crown. Prince William, acting with the immense financial and territorial authority of the Duchy of Cornwall, and Princess Anne, the fierce, uncompromising master of royal administration, noticed an anomaly in the final phase allocations. They discovered an irregular paper trail, a subtle manipulation of spatial planning and crown-funded staffing requests designed to quietly redirect sovereign resources toward Camilla's private family line. For William, this was not merely an administrative infraction, it was a profound threat to the memory of his mother and the future of his wife, Catherine. The legacy of Princess Diana had been systematically minimized for years, but the line was firmly drawn at the physical sovereignty of Buckingham Palace. William and Anne did not react with anger, nor did they allow a single detail to leak to the tabloid press. They understood that in the world of high-stakes royal warfare, the most devastating blows are delivered through the weaponization of administrative protocol. They allowed Camilla to believe her plans were moving forward, letting her compile the requests, sign the memos, and leave a definitive trail of her ambition waiting for the perfect moment to execute a total institutional erasure. The execution of the retaliation was a masterclass in cold British institutional warfare, William and Anne utilised the public accountability of the £369 million sovereign. Grant to argue that Buckingham Palace must be entirely transformed into a working museum and national asset, rather than a sprawling private residence for an extended non-bloodline family. With a single stroke of bureaucratic genius, they redesignated the very rooms Camilla had sought to claim. Converting them into official state offices and public exhibition spaces, they left her with no legal ground to stand on, presenting the change to the world as an act of modern fiscal responsibility. When the final decision was handed down, Camilla was hit by a devastating realization that shattered her decades-long illusion of dominance. Not only was she barred from establishing her family at Buckingham Palace, but she was informed that she and Charles would remain at Clarence House permanently. And that is where the trap truly closes. Clarence House is not sovereign property that belongs to the monarch by right. It is technically an asset tied to the Duchy of Cornwall. In her relentless quest to conquer the ultimate fortress of the crown, Camilla had inadvertently landed herself in a residence where her direct landlord is none other than Prince William. The woman who thought she had successfully manipulated the monarchy found herself living in a home controlled entirely by the son of Diana, completely dependent on his administrative grace and utterly trapped in a cage of her own making. The realization that her fate was entirely in the hands of Prince William was a psychological earthquake for Camilla, but the true devastation was yet to come. When the walls of this administrative trap closed in, she naturally turned to the one man who had spent his entire life tearing down the institution to accommodate her. For 30 years, King Charles had fought for her, shielded her, and bent ancient royal laws to elevate her to the throne. She expected him to issue a sovereign command to overrule his son and to secure her dynasty's place in Buckingham Palace. Instead, she was met with a devastating, echoing silence. Whether it was the exhaustion of his ongoing health battles, the undeniable legal ironclad of William's duchy contracts, or a sudden, stark realization of his own mortality, the king did nothing. He accepted the relocation to Clarence House without public protest, effectively abandoning Camilla to the mercy of a system she could no longer control. That silence was the ultimate emotional betrayal. It proved that while she wore the crown, she had lost the king's absolute protection. This is where the grim reality of commercial desperation set in. To the outside world, Camilla is the Queen of the United Kingdom, draped in priceless jewels and driven in state carriages. But behind the velvet ropes, she is facing a staggering institutional isolation. She does not own Clarence House. She does not control the Duchy of Cornwall, which generates the vast majority of the family's private wealth. She has no sovereign claim to Windsor Castle Balmoral or Sandringham. Without Charles, she possesses no independent royal estate, no private crown funding, and no leverage. Every bodyguard, every private secretary, and every vehicle is funded by a treasury now heavily influenced by William and strictly audited by Princess Anne. The grand illusion of her supremacy shattered against the cold hard math of royal real estate. As Camilla scrambled to comprehend her new tenant-like status, a new order was quietly taking shape. This institutional reckoning was never just about punishing Camilla, it was about restoring the natural hierarchy of the crown. While Camilla found her access restricted and her future uncertain, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, began taking her rightful place with uncomplaining sacrifice and flawless execution. There were no demands for private suites from the Wales family, there was only duty. Observers noted subtle but devastating symbolic shifts in the days following the Buckingham Palace announcement. Portraits of the late Queen Elizabeth and Princess Diana, long kept in the archives, were discreetly moved into prominent display areas within the newly modernised public staterooms. Access to certain historical royal vaults previously managed with a loose oversight was quietly placed under strict new protocols requiring direct approval from the Wales office. Every subtle shift, every locked door, and every redirected memo was a forensic confirmation of the shifting power dynamics. Camilla had spent decades trying to rewrite royal history, believing that a title would finally grant her absolute security, but she fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the institution. The British Crown is not a prize to be won through manipulation. It is an ancient self-correcting organism that protects its bloodline at all costs. What looked like a simple decision to keep the King and Queen in Clarence House was, in reality, the silent execution of a brilliant institutional checkmate. The side door had been opened and the reigning Queen was politely, permanently escorted out of the future. Thank you for watching. If you found this deep dive into the hidden power dynamics of the royal family insightful, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more forensic analysis of the British monarchy.